The ancient being known as Zirathul had not spoken a single word in over 800 years. His massive form rested in the deepest chambers of the crystalline caves on Drakmor Prime, where purple light danced across scales that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. The Dragon Monarch, as lesser beings called him, had grown tired of words long ago. What was the point of speech when every creature that approached him either trembled in terror or sought to use his power for their own gain? The Galactic Council had tried everything to communicate with him. They sent their best diplomats, their most persuasive speakers, even their most beautiful singers. All received the same response, complete and utter silence. Zirathul would simply watch them with eyes like burning stars, waiting for them to finish their pointless chatter before dismissing them with a single, devastating glare. Many believed the Dragon Monarch had lost the ability to speak altogether. Others whispered that he was planning something terrible, gathering his strength for one final war that would reshape the galaxy. None knew the truth, that Zirathul had simply grown weary of a universe where words were used as weapons, where promises were broken as easily as they were made, and where the powerful crushed the weak without thought. The cave system stretched for thousands of miles beneath the planet's surface, filled with treasures from 1,000,000 conquered worlds. Ancient artifacts hummed with forgotten power, while rivers of liquid starlight flowed through channels carved by dragon claws eons ago. This was Zirathul's domain, a place where silence reigned, supreme, and only the sound of his great heart beating echoed through the endless halls. The few creatures brave enough to enter his realm quickly learned to communicate through gestures and written words. Even the mechanical drones sent by various governments had their speakers removed before being granted passage. The Dragon Monarch's silence had become absolute, a force that bent reality itself to his will. But on this particular day, as twin suns cast their light through the crystal formations above, something unprecedented happened. A small transport ship, damaged and listing badly, crashed on the planet's surface directly above Zirathul's chambers. The impact sent vibrations through the stone that reached even the deepest levels, causing the ancient dragon to lift his massive head for the first time in decades. Among the wreckage lay a family of human refugees, their small vessel having suffered catastrophic engine failure while fleeing from a war-torn system. The parents had died on impact, but in the twisted metal of the cargo hold a small voice could be heard calling out in the darkness. It was the voice of a child, no more than 6 years old, speaking words that would change the course of galactic history. The crash site attracted the attention of Drakmor's guardian creatures, massive crystalline beasts that served as Zirathul's eyes and ears on the surface. They were preparing to clear away the debris when something stopped them cold. From deep within the planet came a sound that had not been heard for 8 centuries, the voice of their master, carried on currents of ancient power that made the very stones tremble. For the first time in longer than most civilizations had existed, the silent dragon monarch was about to speak. And it was all because of a small human child whose innocent words had somehow penetrated barriers that armies and empires could not breach. The guardian creatures backed away from the wreckage, their crystalline forms resonating with harmonics of awe and terror. Something fundamental had shifted in the universe, and even these ancient beings could sense that nothing would ever be the same again. Deep in his chamber, Zirathul rose to his full height, his wings spreading wide enough to cast shadows across entire caverns. His eyes blazed with newfound purpose as he began the long journey to the surface, each step causing tremors that registered on seismic equipment across 3 star systems. The galaxy was about to discover that some silences, once broken, could never be restored. And somewhere in the wreckage above, a small human child continued to speak, unaware that their words were reshaping the destiny of countless worlds. The child's name was Luna, and she spoke to the darkness with the fearless curiosity that only the very young possess. Trapped beneath a section of the ship's hull, she could not see the massive form approaching through the caverns below, but she continued her one-sided conversation with remarkable composure for someone in such dire circumstances. "Hello?" she called out again, her voice echoing through the twisted metal. "My mommy and daddy aren't moving anymore. Are you there, purple lights? You're very pretty. Do you have a name?" The purple lights she referred to were the crystalline formations that had begun to glow more brightly since Zirathul started his ascent. Each step the Dragon Monarch took sent pulses of energy through the planet's crystal network, creating a light show that painted the crash site in shifting hues of violet and gold. Luna pressed her small face against a gap in the wreckage, trying to get a better look at the phenomenon. She had never seen anything so beautiful, and despite her situation, she felt oddly comforted by the warm glow. Unknown to her, this was the first time in centuries that Zirathul's emotional state had manifested visibly in his domain. "My teacher always said there might be dragons in space," Luna continued, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. "She said they were really smart and really old. Are you a dragon? I bet you're lonely too. I get lonely sometimes when Mommy and Daddy go to work." These simple words struck Zirathul with the force of a solar flare. Loneliness. Such a small human concept, yet one that perfectly described the ache he had carried for so many centuries. How had this tiny being, this fragile child of a species barely old enough to have achieved interstellar travel, understood what countless ancient races had failed to grasp? The dragon monarch's ascent quickened, his powerful limbs carrying him through passages that groaned under his immense weight. Chunks of crystalline rock fell like meteors as he passed, but his focus remained entirely on the small voice echoing down from above. Each word Luna spoke seemed to chip away at the walls he had built around his heart. "I know you can hear me," she said with the absolute certainty that children possess about things adults have forgotten. "You don't have to be scared. I won't hurt you. I'm just a little girl." The irony was not lost on Zirathul. Here was a being that could destroy star systems with a thought, being comforted by someone who weighed less than one of his smallest scales. Yet somehow Luna's fearless acceptance reached him in ways that no amount of flattery or intimidation ever could. As he climbed higher through his domain, Zirathul passed through chambers he had not visited in decades. Each room told a story of conquest and isolation, weapons that could crack planets, crowns from fallen empires, and artifacts of power beyond imagination. But none of these treasures had ever spoken to him with the pure honesty of a frightened child trying to be brave. "Are you coming to help me?" Luna asked, though she received no answer. "That's okay if you can't. Sometimes grown-ups are busy. But could you maybe keep the pretty lights on? They make me feel less scared." The crystal formations throughout the cave system blazed brighter in response, their light visible even from orbit. Ships passing through the system would report unusual energy readings from Drakmor Prime, but none would dare to investigate. The planet was off limits by ancient treaty, protected by warnings of the terrible creature that dwelt within. Luna giggled as the lights grew more intense, clapping her hands together despite the pain in her trapped leg. "Thank you. You're really nice. I like your light show. It's like the fireworks Daddy showed me on my birthday." For the first time in 800 years, something resembling joy stirred in Zirathul's ancient heart. This child spoke to him not as the feared dragon monarch, not as a creature of legend and terror, but simply as someone who might be listening. She offered friendship without asking for anything in return, comfort without expecting reward. The guardian creatures on the surface sensed their master's approach and began to arrange themselves in protective formations around the crash site. Their crystalline bodies hummed with anticipation, for they too could feel the momentous nature of what was about to occur. Luna yawned, exhaustion finally beginning to take its toll. "I'm getting sleepy," she murmured. "Will you stay with me? I don't like being alone in the dark." As if in response to her request, Zirathul's massive clawed hand finally broke through the surface of his domain, sending tremors across the landscape. After 8 centuries of self-imposed exile, the silent dragon monarch was about to return to a world he had abandoned. And it was all because a small human child had reminded him of something he had forgotten, that sometimes the most powerful magic of all was simply being heard. The ground around the crash site began to crack and heave as something massive pushed up from below. Luna watched in wonder as purple light spilled through the growing fissures, painting the wreckage in ethereal hues. She had no fear, only curiosity, as the very earth seemed to come alive around her. "Wow," she whispered, pressing her face against the gap in the metal. "You're really big, aren't you?" A section of rocky ground the size of a city block suddenly lifted upward, revealing the edge of something that defied comprehension. It was a claw, but not like anything from Luna's picture books. This was a work of art carved from living starlight, each scale reflecting the deep purple of nebulae and the gold of dying suns. The claw was larger than the transport ship that had brought Luna to this world. Behind the claw came more, a leg that seemed to contain entire constellations, then the edge of a wing that stretched beyond Luna's field of vision. The crystal formations that had been glowing began to sing, their harmonious tones creating a symphony that made the very air vibrate with power. Luna clapped her hands in delight. "You are a dragon, the most beautiful dragon ever." My teacher was right. For centuries, beings across the galaxy had described Zirathul in terms of terror and destruction. They spoke of his scales like black holes that devoured light, of eyes like dying stars, of a presence that crushed the spirit before the body. But Luna saw none of these things. She saw beauty, wonder, and something that called to the part of her that still believed in magic. The massive head finally emerged from the depths, moving with careful precision to avoid damaging the wreckage that contained his small visitor. Up close, Zirathul was even more magnificent than Luna had imagined. His head alone was the size of a building, covered in scales that seemed to shift between dimensions. Twin horns crowned his skull, and his eyes were not the burning stars of legend. They were ancient, yes, and filled with power beyond measure, but Luna saw something else there too. She saw sadness, loneliness, and a deep weariness that even a 6-year-old could recognize. "You look sad," she said softly, reaching one small hand through the gap in the wreckage toward him. "Did someone hurt your feelings?" Zirathul's massive head tilted slightly, bringing one enormous eye closer to the trapped child. For 800 years he had been alone with his thoughts, building walls of silence and isolation. But this tiny human, trapped and injured, was worried about his feelings. The concept was so alien to his recent experience that he almost couldn't process it. Luna's hand was impossibly small compared to his scales, but she continued to reach toward him without fear. "It's okay," she whispered. "I get sad sometimes too. When I'm sad, Mommy always gives me hugs. Would you like a hug?" The offer hung in the air like a prayer. A hug. When was the last time someone had offered comfort to the dragon monarch? When was the last time anyone had approached him with kindness rather than greed or terror? Zirathul found himself carefully extending one massive claw, the very tip of which was still larger than Luna's entire hand. She touched it without hesitation, her small fingers tracing the cosmic patterns etched into his scales. "Your skin feels warm," she said with wonder, "and tingly like when Daddy lets me touch the static globe at the Science Museum." The touch sent shockwaves through Zirathul's being. Physical contact. Something he had avoided for so long that he had almost forgotten what it felt like. But this was different from the grasping hands of those who sought to use him. This was gentle, innocent, given freely without expectation of gain. "You know what?" Luna said, settling back against the wreckage but keeping her hand in contact with his claw. "I think you've been alone for a really long time. That's not good. Everyone needs friends." The word friends echoed through Zirathul's consciousness like a bell being struck. Friends. Not subjects. Not servants. Not fearful supplicants bringing tribute. Friends. Beings who chose to spend time with you simply because they enjoyed your company. "I could be your friend," Luna offered, her voice growing sleepy again. "If you want. I'm not very big and I don't know much about dragon things, but I'm a really good friend. I share my toys and I never tell secrets and I always remember birthdays." As Luna's breathing began to slow, Zirathul made a decision that would reshape the balance of power across 3 galaxies. Very carefully, using microscopic adjustments of his immense strength, he began to clear away the wreckage that trapped his new friend. Each piece of twisted metal was moved with the delicacy of a surgeon, ensuring that not even the slightest vibration would cause Luna harm. The child watched drowsily as debris that would have taken a rescue team hours to move was gently lifted away by claws that could carve through moon-sized asteroids. "Thank you," she murmured. "You're the nicest dragon in the whole universe." And in that moment, as Luna finally drifted off to sleep in the palm of his massive claw, Zirathul felt something he had not experienced in 8 centuries. The desire to speak, to share his thoughts with another being, to break the silence that had defined him for longer than most civilizations had existed. The silent dragon monarch opened his mouth, and for the first time in 800 years, he prepared to use his voice. The first word Zirathul spoke in 8 centuries was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of cosmic storms. Luna, her name spoken in his ancient voice, created ripples in reality itself. The crystal formations throughout his domain resonated with harmonics that had never been heard before. Across the galaxy, sensitive beings suddenly looked up at the stars, feeling something fundamental shift in the fabric of space and time. Luna stirred in his palm, her eyes fluttering open. She looked up at the massive face above her and smiled with sleepy contentment. "Did you say my name? Your voice is really deep. Like thunder, but nice thunder." Zarathul found himself struggling with words that had once flowed as easily as starlight. His voice, unused for so long, creaked like ancient machinery being awakened. Yes, Luna. Your name is Luna. And you're—" she prompted gently, sensing his difficulty. "What's your name?" For a moment, Zarathul considered giving her one of his many titles: Dragon, Monarch, Star Render, the Silence of Drakmor. But looking into her trusting eyes, he found himself saying something he had not spoken aloud in millennia. "Zarathul. My name is Zarathul." "Zarathul," Luna repeated carefully, tasting each syllable. "That's a beautiful name. It sounds like music." She shifted slightly in his palm, wincing as her injured leg reminded her of the crash. Zarathul noticed immediately, his newly awakened concern for another being surprising him with its intensity. "You are hurt," he observed, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Just a little," Luna said bravely, though tears gathered in her eyes. "My leg got squished when the ship crashed. But it's okay. Daddy always says I'm tough like Mommy." The mention of her parents brought reality crashing back. Zarathul's enhanced senses could detect no life signs from the wreckage, and he realized that this small, brave child was now alone in the universe. The knowledge filled him with an unfamiliar emotion: protectiveness. It burned in his chest like a newborn star. "Luna," he said gently, surprised by how carefully he was choosing his words. "Your parents, they have passed into the starlight. You understand?" Luna's lower lip trembled, but she nodded. "I know, they got really quiet after the crash. Like when Grandma got quiet and went to live with the stars." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Will I go live with the stars too?" "No," Zarathul said with such absolute certainty that the ground trembled beneath them. "You will not. I will not allow it." The declaration surprised him as much as it did Luna. When had he started caring about the fate of a single small being? When had her survival become more important than his treasured solitude? But looking at her sitting in his palm, so small and vulnerable yet still trying to be brave, he knew that something in him had changed forever. "You'll take care of me?" Luna asked, hope blooming in her voice. "I will," Zarathul promised, and felt the weight of that vow settle into his very essence. "But first, we must tend to your injuries." He began to rise from the crater his emergence had created, holding Luna with infinite care. His movements, despite his massive size, were surprisingly gentle. Centuries of precise control over his immense power now served a new purpose: protecting something precious and fragile. As they ascended into the open air above his domain, Luna gasped in wonder. From this height, she could see the true scope of Drakmor Prime. The crystal formations stretched to the horizon, creating a landscape that looked like a fairy tale made real. Rivers of liquid light flowed between towering spires of pure energy, and the sky above swirled with colors that had no names in any language. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "Is this your home?" "It was my prison," Zarathul replied thoughtfully. "But perhaps it can be something else now." He carried her toward a cluster of healing crystals that grew near the center of his domain. These formations had the power to mend even the most grievous wounds, but they had not been used in centuries. As they approached, the crystals began to glow more brightly, responding to their master's presence and purpose. "What are those?" Luna asked, pointing at the luminous formations. "They will heal your leg," Zarathul explained. "And perhaps they will heal other things as well." He set her down gently near the largest healing crystal, its warm light already beginning to work on her injuries. Luna sighed in relief as the pain in her leg began to fade. But she noticed that Zarathul seemed different too. The deep sadness in his eyes was starting to lift, replaced by something that looked like wonder. "Zarathul," she said, reaching out to touch one of his smaller scales. "Are you feeling better too?" He considered the question seriously. For the first time in 8 centuries, he was not alone. For the first time in longer than he could remember, someone cared about his feelings. The silence that had been his shield had also been his cage, and this small human child had shown him the way out. "Yes," he said, his voice growing stronger and more certain with each passing moment. "I believe I am." As the healing light surrounded them both, neither Luna nor Zirathul noticed the distant ships that had begun to appear at the edge of the star system. Word was spreading across the galaxy that something unprecedented had happened on Drakmor Prime. The silent dragon Monarch had spoken, and the universe was about to learn what that meant for everyone. Within hours of Zirathul's first spoken words in 8 centuries, every major government in the galaxy received the same message. Seismic sensors across 3 star systems had detected massive energy, fluctuations emanating from Drakmor Prime. Ships that had been monitoring the supposedly dead world reported unprecedented crystal resonance patterns and confirmed visual sightings of the dragon. Monarch on the surface, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Military fleets moved to defensive positions. Religious leaders proclaimed everything from the end times to a new age of miracles. But none of them understood the simple truth that the most powerful being in known space was currently teaching a 6-year-old human child how to make his healing crystals sing different musical notes. If you touch them like this, Luna demonstrated, running her small hands along the crystal's smooth surface, they make happy sounds. But if you touch them like this, she changed her technique, they sound sad. Why do they do that? Zirathul watched her with fascination. In all his centuries of existence, he had never thought to experiment with the crystals in such a playful manner. They were tools of power, weapons of war, instruments of healing, but Luna had discovered they could also be instruments of joy. I believe, he said slowly, they respond to the emotions of the one who touches them. You have shown them feelings I had forgotten existed. Luna beamed at the compliment. Her leg was completely healed now, and she had been exploring Zirathul's domain with the fearless curiosity of childhood. Every new discovery delighted her, and her delight in turn awakened parts of Zirathul's consciousness that had been dormant for centuries. Can you make them sing too? She asked. Zirathul extended one massive claw toward a cluster of smaller crystals. When he touched them, they resonated with deep, complex harmonies that spoke of eons of solitude and the weight of absolute power. But as Luna placed her tiny hand alongside his claw, the music changed. The lonely depths were joined by bright, clear notes of wonder and hope. We make beautiful music together, Luna said with satisfaction. Like a team. The word team struck Zirathul with unexpected force. He had always stood alone, made decisions alone, faced the cosmos alone. But this small human was suggesting something revolutionary. Partnership, cooperation, the idea that 2 beings might accomplish more together than either could alone. Their musical exploration was interrupted by a harmonic pulse from the guardian crystals. Positioned throughout the domain, Zirathul's expression grew serious as he interpreted the warning. We have visitors, he announced. High above Drakmor Prime, a diplomatic vessel bearing the insignia of the Galactic Council had entered orbit. Its message was being broadcast on all frequencies. This is Ambassador Kelthera of the High Council, requesting immediate audience with the Dragon Monarch. We come seeking peaceful dialogue regarding recent seismic activities. Luna looked up at Zirathul with curiosity. Are they your friends too? The question highlighted just how much his perspective had changed in such a short time. 8 centuries ago, he would have considered any unauthorized approach to his world an act of aggression. Now he found himself wondering if these beings might genuinely seek peaceful contact. I do not know, he admitted. I have not spoken with them for many years. Maybe we should find out, Luna suggested with the simple logic of childhood. If they're nice, they could be our friends. If they're not nice, well... She looked at Zirathul's massive form with complete confidence. I bet you can handle them. Her absolute faith in him was both humbling and empowering. For the first time in centuries, Zirathul felt something other than indifference toward the galactic community. He had someone to protect now. Someone whose opinion of him mattered more than the fear or respect of entire civilizations. Very well, he decided. We shall meet with these visitors, but you will remain close to me. Always, Luna promised, reaching up to pat one of his smaller scales. Best friends stick together. As they rose into the sky, Zirathul carrying Luna in his carefully cupped claws, the approaching diplomatic ship's sensors went wild. The readings they were getting made no sense. The Dragon Monarch was not simply moving. He was ascending toward them with what could only be described as purposeful gentleness. Ambassador Kelthera, a being from the crystal-based Lumanti species, felt her photonic matrix fluctuate with nervousness. She had volunteered for this mission because her people had the best historical records of Zirathul's past communications. But those records were 800 years old, and this was entirely uncharted territory. "Unknown vessel," came a voice that seemed to speak directly to their minds, rather than through their communication systems. It was deep, ancient, and carried the weight of stars. "I am Zirathul. You seek audience. For what purpose?" The fact that he had initiated communication, rather than simply destroying them or ignoring them completely, was already more than the Council had dared hope for. Ambassador Kelthera steadied herself and responded. "Great Zirathul, we come seeking understanding. Our instruments detected unprecedented activity from your domain. We wish to know if this represents a change in your disposition toward galactic affairs." There was a pause that seemed to stretch for eternity. Then Zirathul's voice returned, and there was something in it that none of the diplomatic team could identify, something that sounded almost like warmth. "Yes," he said simply, "everything has changed." Luna, safely cradled in his protective grasp, waved cheerfully at the approaching ship. She couldn't see the faces of the beings inside, but she wanted them to know that she and Zirathul were friendly. This small, innocent gesture would soon become one of the most famous images in galactic history. The moment when humanity's natural warmth began to transform the most feared being in known space. "Change," Ambassador Kelthera repeated, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. "And what has brought about this change, if we may ask?" Zirathul's response would be recorded, analyzed, and debated by scholars for generations to come. But for Luna, sitting safely in the palm of her new best friend, it was simply the truth. "I have learned," the Dragon Monarch said, "that even the oldest, loneliest hearts can still learn to sing." The diplomatic meeting that followed would reshape galactic politics for millennia to come. Ambassador Kelthera found herself in the unprecedented position of conducting negotiations with a being who had, until recently, refused to acknowledge the existence of galactic civilization. What made it even more surreal was the small human child sitting cross-legged in Zirathul's palm, occasionally offering commentary that somehow cut straight to the heart of complex political issues. "You want to know if I plan to resume what you call my aggressive expansion?" Zirathul stated, his mental voice reaching all occupants of the diplomatic vessel. "The answer is no. I have found something more valuable than conquered worlds." "And what might that be?" Ambassador Kelthera asked carefully. Luna leaned forward with excitement. "Friendship. And music. Did you know that crystals can sing?" "Zirathul taught me, and I taught him about happy songs." The diplomatic team exchanged glances of bewilderment. Their intelligence briefings had prepared them for many scenarios, but not for a human child explaining the psychological transformation of the galaxy's most feared entity in terms of musical crystal formations. "The child speaks truth," Zirathul confirmed. "For 8 centuries I knew only the silence of power. Luna has shown me the symphony of connection. I prefer the music." Ambassador Kelthera's photonic matrix stabilized as she began to understand the magnitude of what had occurred. "Are you saying that your territorial ambitions have ended? That you no longer seek to expand your domain?" "My domain," Zirathul said thoughtfully, "was never about territory. It was about the space needed to maintain silence. But silence, I have learned, is not wisdom. It is merely the absence of understanding." Luna nodded sagely, then looked up at her friend. "Tell them about the sharing thing you told me." Zirathul's mental voice carried what could only be described as amusement. "Luna has introduced me to the concept of sharing. She believes that good things become better when experienced with others. This philosophy intrigues me." "Sharing?" Ambassador Kelthera repeated, struggling to process the implications. "Yes," Zirathul continued. "For instance, I possess healing crystals that could eliminate disease across 1,000 worlds. I have energy sources that could power civilizations for eons. I command knowledge that could advance galactic technology by millennia. Until now, I saw no reason to share these gifts. But Luna has convinced me that hoarding wonders is, what was your phrase, little friend? Super boring," Luna supplied cheerfully. "And also mean. Good friends share their toys." The diplomatic team sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. The Dragon Monarch was offering to share technologies and resources that could transform galactic civilization. All because a human child had convinced him that sharing was more fun than hoarding. Ambassador Kelthera found her voice. You would be willing to share your knowledge with the galactic community? Under certain conditions, Zirathul replied, and his mental voice carried undertones of protective steel. Luna has shown me that there are beings in this universe worth protecting. I will share my gifts with those who demonstrate wisdom, compassion, and respect for the innocent. Those who seek to use my gifts for oppression or conquest will find that my capacity for silence was exceeded only by my capacity for wrath. Luna patted his scale reassuringly. Don't worry, Zirathul. We'll help them be good friends. Sometimes people just need to be taught how. The innocent confidence in her voice sent chills through the diplomatic team. This child, who couldn't be more than 6 years old, was casually discussing the moral education of galactic civilizations while sitting in the palm of a being who could obliterate star systems. There is more, Zirathul continued. Luna requires care, education, and companionship with others of her species. I propose an exchange. I will establish what she calls playdates with representatives from various worlds. Through these interactions, I will learn more about the galactic community, and they will learn about me. Those who prove themselves worthy friends to Luna will be granted access to my gifts. Ambassador Kelthera's mind raced. The Dragon Monarch was essentially proposing a diplomatic revolution. Instead of traditional negotiations between governments, he wanted cultural exchanges centered around a human child's social development. It was unprecedented, unconventional, and absolutely brilliant. The High Council would be honored to participate in such exchanges, she said carefully. Though I must ask, what of Luna's own wishes in this matter? Does she desire contact with others? Luna's face lit up with excitement. Oh yes, I love meeting new people. And Zirathul said he'll teach me how to make the crystals do all sorts of neat things so I can show them to my new friends. The enthusiasm in her voice was infectious. Even through their translator systems, the diplomatic team could feel the pure joy radiating from the small human. It occurred to Ambassador Kelthera that this child possessed something that all their advanced civilizations had somehow lost, the ability to approach strangers with genuine excitement rather than suspicion. Then it is settled, Zirathul declared. But know this, Luna is under my protection.
Any who would harm her will face consequences that will echo across dimensions.
Any who would use her innocence for political gain will discover that my silence was mercy, not weakness. Luna giggled and hugged his massive claw. You're the best protector ever. But you don't have to worry so much. Most people are nice once you get to know them. As the diplomatic vessel prepared to return to the galactic capital with news that would transform interstellar relations, Ambassador Kelthera realized she had witnessed something remarkable. A human child's natural capacity for friendship had not only ended 8 centuries of silence, but had turned the galaxy's most feared isolationist into its most powerful advocate for connection and cooperation. The age of the silent dragon monarch was over. The age of Luna and Zirathul, friends and partners in reshaping the universe, had begun, and somewhere in the diplomatic vessel's recorder banks, the sound of a small girl's laughter harmonizing with ancient crystal songs marked the moment when everything changed forever. 3 months after first contact, Drakmor Prime had become the most visited world in the galaxy. What once had been a forbidden planet shrouded in terror was now a beacon of hope and wonder. The transformation was so complete that historians would later mark this period as the beginning of the Second Galactic Renaissance. Luna had grown into her role as unofficial ambassador with the natural grace that seemed to define humanity's approach to the impossible. She spent her mornings learning advanced mathematics from Zirathul's vast memory banks, her afternoons playing with visiting children from dozens of different species, and her evenings helping her best friend compose crystal symphonies that could be heard across star systems, the healing centers that Zirathul had established using his ancient knowledge had already eliminated 12 different galactic plagues. His energy distribution networks powered colonies that had struggled with resource scarcity for generations. Most importantly, his requirement that all recipients demonstrate compassion and wisdom had begun to transform galactic culture itself. Today's visitors are from the Andorian Collective, Luna announced, reading from the appointment schedule Zirathul had helped her learn to manage. They want to show us their new friendship gardens. The concept of friendship gardens had emerged from one of Luna's casual suggestions during an early diplomatic meeting. She had mentioned that flowers made everything prettier and that pretty things made people happier. The Andorians, a deeply logical species, had taken this observation and created mathematical models proving the psychological benefits of planned botanical beauty. Their friendship gardens were now being established throughout their territory. And this afternoon, Luna continued, the crystalline hegemony wants to have a singing contest with our crystals. They think their resonance chambers can harmonize better than we can. Zirathul's mental chuckle rumbled through the crystal formations around them. They underestimate the power of enthusiasm over precision. You have taught our crystals to sing with joy, not merely accuracy. This was the kind of gentle competition that had become common on Drakmor Prime. Luna's approach to interspecies relations was based on play, creativity, and mutual discovery rather than formal negotiation. The results spoke for themselves. Former enemies were collaborating on artistic projects, trade disputes were being resolved through collaborative festivals, and the concept of Luna's Way had become a recognized diplomatic methodology. As the morning visitors arrived, Luna rushed to greet them with the boundless energy that had become legendary throughout the galaxy. The Andorian delegation was led by Ambassador Vex 9, whose logical mind had been completely charmed by Luna's ability to find mathematical beauty in the most unexpected places. Luna friend, Vex 9 said in the formal but warm manner his species had developed specifically for communications with her. We have created theoretical models of optimal friendship distribution patterns based on your garden suggestions. That sounds amazing, Luna replied, bouncing on her toes with excitement. Can we test them out? Maybe Zirathul can help us make some super soil that makes flowers grow in harmony patterns. The ease with which she suggested applications for cosmic-level power never ceased to amaze the visiting diplomats. To Luna, Zirathul's ability to manipulate matter at the molecular level was simply a useful tool for making better playgrounds and gardens. Her lack of fear or greed in the face of ultimate power had become a model that many civilizations were trying to emulate. As the day progressed, more delegations arrived. The quantum dancers brought new movement patterns they wanted to synchronize with crystal songs. The void philosophers presented questions about the nature of friendship that they hoped Luna and Zirathul could help them explore. The mechanical collective had designed new playground equipment based on Luna's specifications for maximum fun and safety. But it was the evening's special visitor that made this day truly historic. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Colonial Fleet had requested permission to visit Drakmor Prime. She was the first human adult to meet Luna since the crash, and her arrival carried implications that extended far beyond simple reunion. Luna ran to greet Captain Chen with tears of joy streaming down her face. Another human? Are you here to take me home? Captain Chen knelt to Luna's level, her own eyes wet with emotion. Hello, Luna. I'm here to check on you to make sure you're happy and safe. But as for taking you home, she glanced up at Zirathul's massive form. I think that decision is yours to make. Luna looked back and forth between Captain Chen and Zirathul, her young mind grappling with concepts of home, family, and belonging that would challenge philosophers. This is my home now, she said finally. Zirathul is my family, but I want to stay connected to other humans too. Can we do both? Zirathul's mental voice when it came was filled with pride and love. Luna has taught me that families can grow beyond traditional boundaries. Captain Chen, I propose that Drakmor Prime become a bridge between our species. Luna can maintain connections with humanity while serving as an ambassador to the galaxy. Captain Chen nodded slowly, understanding the magnitude of what was being offered. A permanent cultural exchange. Luna could help both species understand each other while facilitating galactic cooperation. And I could visit Earth sometimes, Luna added excitedly. And show other human kids how to make friends with crystals and dragons. As the three beings discussed the details of this arrangement, the crystal formations around them began to glow with renewed intensity. Throughout the galaxy, sensitive beings paused in their activities, feeling the resonance of a new harmony being established. The friendship between a lost human child and an ancient dragon had evolved into something greater, a new model for how different species could not only coexist, but thrive together. That night, as Luna settled into her specially crafted bed within Zirathul's protective embrace, she looked up at the stars visible through the crystal dome above them. Do you think we've made the universe a better place? she asked sleepily. Zirathul's response came as a gentle rumble that seemed to harmonize with the crystal song surrounding them. We have made it a more musical place, little friend, and in a universe where harmony is possible, anything can be better. As Luna drifted off to sleep, her dreams filled with visions of crystal gardens and interstellar playgrounds, the galaxy itself seemed to settle into a new rhythm. The age of isolation and fear was ending, replaced by an era of connection and wonder. And at the heart of it all was the simple truth that Luna had discovered, sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is a willingness to reach out and make a friend. The silent dragon Monarch had found his voice. Humanity had found its place among the stars, and the galaxy had learned to sing.